Well, ladies and gentlemen, I am back home. We have left Dynasty, and this is what just happened. We had ourselves a doozy of a show, maybe somewhat predictable, but we are going to dive into everything. We start off with the pre-show. We had two matches on the pre-show. The first was Nick Wayne and the Crew defeating AR Fox and Top Flight, and the second was the Max Caster Best Wrestler Alive Challenge, and it was answered by a returning Anthony Bowens, who had the entrance, the music, everything, and he went on to defeat Max Caster. Our opening contest was Will Ospreay versus Kevin Knight in a men's Owen Hart Cup Tournament quarterfinal match. Say that 5 times fast. And this was a fantastic match. He got just the right amount of time. Very, very appropriate. These two men put on a show, and it was never in doubt that Will Ospreay was going to win. The story was more about elevating Kevin Knight and letting him show what he can do, and he did just that. This was a fantastic match. Then we had the AEW World Tag Team Championships as the Hurt Syndicate. We hurt people. They were super over defending against the Learning Tree. This match actually went a little bit longer than I thought it would, and again, this was another match where the ending was never ever in doubt. Big Bill got to show up, show out, and show off. Bryan Keith got to do what he does best, and that's just make a name for himself. But again, the real story over here was, where would MJF show up? How would he get involved? And get involved he did. Essentially, he was in the crowd, and as Big Bill was hanging on the corner barricade, well, MJF punched him with the Dynamite Diamond Ring, allowing the Hurt Syndicate to take advantage and get the W. They were quite pissed, and listen, MJF is trying to prove himself. Then we had another Owen Hart Cup quarterfinal match. This was the women's one, with Mercedes Mone taking on Julia Hart. Again, winner was never in doubt. So the question is, how would you make it be believable that Julia Hart can win? First things first, Julia Hart has the best entrance for a woman in professional wrestling, period. End of discussion. Nobody, and I mean nobody, comes close. Her entrance is a thing to behold. I need more from the Hounds of Hell. Julia Hart acquitted herself quite well. Mercedes Mone has been on a roll. She suffered her first loss this past weekend on Collision, and Julia Hart just really had answers for her. There was no mist involved, and Julia was really locked in those submissions, but Mercedes was also able to counter those submissions, and ultimately she won with a nice, beautiful, I believe it was a seatbelt pin. But this was a really good match. Julia Hart was super over with the crowd, and they were all for her. I mean, people were for Mercedes too, because she's Mercedes Mone. But this was a really solid match. And Mercedes Mone moves on to the next round to take on the winner of, I believe, Athena versus Harley Cameron. Next up, we had the trio champions on the line as the Death Riders were defending against Rated FTR, and this was all about, could Rated FTR put their differences aside from what's been going on with them recently to take out the Death Riders. And overall, it was a great match. It was a fantastic match. Went a little bit longer than I thought it would, but ultimately the Death Riders won here. And we're not going to really remember this match for the match itself. We're not going to remember that the Death Riders won. They did what they did. Wheeler Yuta got the pin. We're going to remember this match for what happened afterward. Rated FTR were laid out. They were getting up to go ready to leave, and Dax hit a power driver on Cope, right? And Cash couldn't believe it. Dax then went, and he was going to give Cope a concerto, and Cash stopped him. I'm like, okay, you know your man messed up, so gonna help Cope up. And then they gave him the big rig. And then Cash is the one to give Cope not one, but 2 concertos. And rated FTR are no more. Cope is dead. And FTR are back to being heels. So I'm predicting that this story moves to FTR versus a reuniting Edge and Christian. I'm just saying, I think that's where we are headed. We have the AEW Women's World Championship being defended as Timeless Toni Storm was defending against Megan Bayne. A fantastic match. Another match again where the ending, the outcome was never in doubt. We knew Toni Storm was going to win, so it was about how do we make Megan Bayne look good in defeat. And ladies and gentlemen, Toni Storm got by the skin of her teeth. Great entrance with the whole Philly Rocky thing. Luther came out dressed as Mick. And this was good. And it was just like everything Toni Storm threw at Megan Bayne had an answer for, or just got right back up. Penelope before was there to help Megan Bayne. She got involved multiple times. Luther was finally able to get Penelope before away from there, but it was like everything Toni had for Megan was not enough. She hit Megan Bayne with 3 Sweet Chic musics, hit her with a Storm Zero, and Megan Bayne kicked out at 1. She kicked out at 1, so she couldn't put her away. But you know how she won the match? With a small package. Toni Storm won with a small package. If you know the history, you've been watching TV and know the feud, then you know why she won with a small package. It was a thing of beauty. Toni Storm didn't win here. She survived Megan Bayne. And I promise you, the next time they fight, Megan Bayne is winning here. Then we had our second men's Owen Hart quarterfinal match as Kyle Fletcher took on Mark Briscoe. This was match number 4. As coming into this match, Mark Briscoe held a 2-1 advantage over Kyle Fletcher. And ladies and gentlemen, I must say these two put on this was probably the best match they've had so far out of this series, and I'm expecting a 5th match. Kyle Fletcher was always going to win here, and everything he did, just like what Toni Storm was doing, he could not put away Mark Briscoe until he finally hit that one move that puts everybody away. That is that brain buster on the top turnbuckle. This was solid. This was a solid affair. I'm expecting a 5th match, and Kyle Fletcher moves on in the Owen Hart Cup. Then we had Chris Jericho defending the Ring of Honor World Championship in a title versus Mask match, and this match went on for way too long. It was entertaining. It was fun. Jericho was doing his thing, got the crowd involved. Bandito was just kind of there. His family was there. You know, when the mask was put on the line for luchadors, it means something. And originally, Jericho won, but the match was restarted because he ended up using Floyd, and Bandito ultimately winning the world title. And like I said, this was, the ending was never in doubt. This was one of the longer matches of the card. Actually, next to the triple threat in the world title, this was the 3rd longest match on the card. Who would have thought? But we have a new Ring of Honor World Champion in Bandito. Then we had Adam Cole versus Daniel Garcia, with Daniel Garcia defending the TNT Championship. This match had a stipulation of no time limit draws and no outside interference because it was strictly prohibited. And I didn't know which direction they were going to go here, but it was a solid affair. Adam Cole did his damnedest, but it was like Garcia had an answer for everything. And ultimately, Adam Cole wins the match, and he is your new TNT champion. He finally gets the one win that he needed. I want to see what's next for Daniel Garcia. This was a really solid technical affair. It went about the length I thought it was going to go, maybe a little bit longer, but we got to do the follow-up. Then we had, in my opinion, the match of the night. Kenny Omega defending the International Championship against Speedball, Mike Bailey, and Ricochet, and this was absolutely fantastic. If you did not know who Speedball Mike Bailey was, then you know who he is now, just move after move, kick after kick. He hit Ricochet with a crane kick from the Karate Kid. Beautiful. He also was wearing Buzz Lightyear inspired gear. Ricochet was doing his thing. Omega was doing his thing. These two dudes were just awesome. Kenny was never going to lose here because it was his first title defense. And again, if he was going to lose, it would have probably been to Ricochet. But we got to see how everything plays out. This was an absolutely fantastic match. These three dudes, I could really watch them go at it all day. It's hard to go after every move that they did here, but it was just enough, and Kenny ultimately won the match. And finally, in our main event, Jon Moxley defending the AEW World Championship against Swerve Strickland. And listen, I was telling this to my friends who I was there with. If you've seen one Mox match recently, you've seen all Mox matches, and this match was honestly, Mox matches closely resemble Roman Reigns' match, meaning that I'm just waiting for the interference and the ref bump before I even get up for this. So, I mean, early in the match, we just really had a fight. Swerve hit a swerve stomp off a ladder through a table on Mox. And then we finally get to the interference when Mox ended up accidentally throwing a chair right at the ref's face. I believe it was Paul Turner reffing the match. And then things got turned up. Marina Shafir was already knocked out. Prince Nana was already knocked out. So who should show up? Of course, the rest of the Death Riders to save Mox. But I was waiting. I've been telling everybody all night, if the Death Riders will show up, a certain other team was going to be in the building, and they better not catch you lacking. And that was the Ops showing up, removing the rest of the Death Riders. But even before all of that happened, Hangman Adam Page came out, and he was ready to hit a buckshot lariat on Swerve. But then he looked at Mox, and then that's when the rest of the Death Riders came out, and then the Ops came out. So it looks like the numbers game didn't work. It looks like Swerve was going to win the match. He hit a Swerve stomp, and then the lights went out. And when he came back on, who should be there holding Swerve Strickland? None other than the Young Bucks. And they hit Swerve with a BTE trigger and leave. And Mox once again walks away as your AEW World Champion. Can you believe it? That is crazy. Mox gets away again. Man. All In and Double or Nothing are going to be some fantastic shows with everything they just pulled out here on this show. Ultimately, I can't believe I'm saying this. It was I don't want to say inconsequential show, but they did some story beats that you gotta watch Dynamite on Wednesday and Collision on Saturday. But that is our show. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. This is What Just Happened. AEW presents Dynasty in Philadelphia. I'll see you when I see you. Peace.